The Blue Jays are coming off a day off before taking on fellow playoff contender Philadelphia, but a coucher's work is never done. And I always am ready to share the views from the On Fek Circle. The On Fek Circle streams live to baseball fans everywhere, Tuesdays, 6 p.m. Eastern Time on the Jays from the Couch YouTube channel and Facebook page. You can join the conversations and contribute your views by commenting in the live chat areas. After all, it is your show, Blue Jay fans. Founder and senior editor Shaun Doyle creates and moderates Blue Jays Talk for All every Monday, 6 p.m. Eastern Time on the Jays from the Couch radio podcast, 310 episodes strong. And Doyle continues to talk baseball with Toronto beat writers and players, out-of-town analysts, and fellow couchers, like Jays from the Couch staff writer and podcast host Karen Suter. Karen takes a look at baseball through Blue Jays-colored glasses on Sunny Side of the Dome, live this Thursday, 6 p.m. Eastern Time. And if life keeps you from enjoying our shows live, well, that kind of sucks. But you can redeem your rain checks to download and listen to all the great Jays from the Couch audio content at your convenience, on demand, anywhere you find your favorite podcast. Apple, Google, iHeartRadio, Podbean, Spotify, Stitcher. All three shows are available in our archives as an audio podcast and on the Jays from the Couch YouTube channel. All three Jays from the Couch experiences are brought to you by your source for quality Blue Jays coverage, JaysFromTheCouch.com. I am your host and shadow general manager of the Toronto Blue Jays, the Fekless Wonder, Steve Fek. Welcome to the On Fek Circle, where the podcast isn't always all black and white. You might come out a bit black and blue, but it'll be Blue Jays blue, so that's okay. Okay, I'm really excited about this show. There's a lot to touch upon before we get to the meat on the plate. A couple of ceremonial first pitches. Visit and experience JaysFromTheCouch.com every day. There's daily minor league recaps that are just brilliant, and they're authored by Ryan Mueller. There's deep dives by Bob Ritchie. Our founder and senior editor Shaun Doyle brings a lot of insight and a lot of things to think about in all of the articles he presents. Tomorrow, I'm going to have up a Blue Jays bedtime story. It's a segment we used to have here on the On Fek Circle. We're transitioning it over to the website that'll be up every Wednesday. And we're talking about, since they're playing the Phillies, we're going to talk about in the Blue Jays bedtime story, the 1993 World Series. Remember that? I know Mitch Williams does. He probably goes through a lot of shock treatments to not remember it, but I know he does. Certainly Joe Carter does. And that Tom Cheeks call, touch 'em all, Joe, you'll never hit a bigger home run in your life. That matches up with anything that the Vin Scullys and the Harry Careys, Brick House, Joe Buck, any of them, it matches up with any of those calls. So it'll be an interesting bedtime story, so make sure you check that out. You should also visit the Jays from the Couch Fantasy League and their Facebook page. It's facebook.com/JFtC Fantasy League. Got to use the abbreviation JFtC Fantasy League. Follow along, maybe find a team you want to root for. The playoffs are already one round in the books. We have the semifinal rounds coming up. Rao Report and Willie Mays Hayes had a bye. They're taking on the Halifax Explosion and the Double Players. They won their first round match. Again, you can follow along. We even have a football league now. Week 2 is in the books. 3 undefeated teams. None of us are really football gurus. I have a feeling that there's one ringer that's a friend of our editor, Shaun Doyle, and I brought on board 2 Pittsburgh area football ringers to try to spice things up a little bit. We're even going to have a hockey league. So make sure you do visit and follow along. Have a favorite team. Root for your favorite GM or your favorite team or your favorite player or your favorite team name, whatever it is. Make sure that you check all of that out. And I should point out, this broke earlier today, in case you have not heard this. It is reported that Canada is going to drop its COVID-19 vaccine requirements as of September 30th. They're going to end the random testing for arrivals and departures. This is reported by the Toronto Globe and Mail. Mask requirements will still be in place. But the reason I bring it up here on a baseball podcast is, thank God we don't have to hear the whining and the excuse making anymore from any of the teams who are complaining that they're not going to be able to play at full strength, and it's an unfair advantage for the Blue Jays, for its home country, to have restrictions about vaccines. I mean, thank God. That is just so annoying. And forget the political angle, forget the moral, libertarian viewpoint of, you have rights as long as they don't affect the welfare of others. Forget all of that. Players made conscious decisions. They made choices to not get vaccinated, and their teams knew that. So for them to then say what's an unfair advantage, okay, nobody ever complains about the exchange rate for Canadian teams. And quite honestly, it wasn't the only reason the Expos failed, but it doomed them. It really did. After the player strike, they never recovered from that, and they just simply could not generate the revenues. They didn't even have a TV or radio deal, I think, toward the end of their stay in Montreal. And certainly Toronto, again, big market. They've had some pretty, wealthy owners, Interbrew, now Rogers Communications. Bottom line is, the team still generates media revenues, certainly domestic media revenues, in Canadian dollars, and has to pay expenses and pay salaries in American dollars. Nobody ever talks about that disadvantage. And nobody ever, gives the Blue Jays any kind of a break other than saying, oh, what a great story it was for them to basically be on the road for 2 years, a season and a half. You want to say one season because it was only a 60-game schedule, but still. Okay, nobody ever talks about that. It's the oppressive Canadian government always trying to be politically correct, not letting innocent millionaire baseball players have a fit, stamp their feet, and be able to come into their country to play baseball because they hold a personal belief, which they're allowed to do. But bottom line is, they knew what the rules are. And I rarely give the MLBPA credit. They stayed basically silent on this, and they told all of their players and all their player reps, look, okay, we're going to defend your right to not be vaccinated, but don't come running to us and complain because you're losing service time and you're losing pay because you weren't vaccinated. So something I just thought we should throw out there. Something I just wanted to get that off of my chest. But it really would have been. I just can't imagine what would have happened if the Blue Jays did have a home playoff series in the wild card round by finishing at the top wild card spot, and if they advanced on, eventually they would be able to have home games, because it's only the wild card round where it's limited home games for the third-ranked division winner and the top wild card winner. They have all the games in their home stadium. But if they advanced into the round or the World Series, it would have been insufferable. So thank God that has been resolved to a certain degree. Let's get down to some Fekless Wonders. It's a new segment that we brought back last week. We had it early on in the early days, the prehistoric Flintstone days of the On Fek Circle, the Fekstones, I guess you would call it. And again, that's my moniker. That's the nickname that was given to me by our founder and senior editor, Shaun Doyle. I love it. In a previous incarnation, I ran a company called Fekless Radio that streamed, various music type of programs, on a platform called Radionomy. It was worldwide. It was terrific. I like the whole idea, the wordplay of feckless, because some of you, when you hear me speak, will think I am feckless, that I am careless, that I am lazy, I don't care, I don't think about the consequences of what I say. And I kind of like that. I kind of like that image. Of course I care. It's not going to stop me from saying what I say, but of course I care. So the first Fekless Wonder I want to talk about is HyunJin Ryu. And you're going to be saying to yourself, why is the Fekless Wonder bringing up HyunJin Ryu? He's out for the year. He had Tommy John. HyunJin Ryu's presence, especially for home series, has been total. He's been at every game. But I say to you, for people that are complaining about, it was a bad contract, and we've spent millions of dollars, $20 million a year on this guy. He had one good season, one half of the 2020 abbreviated year he was good. Then he was hurt. He was inconsistent. He didn't pitch well last year. What a wasted contract. We have talked before, both here on this show. Karen has mentioned it on Sunday Side of the Dome, Thursday, 6 p.m. Eastern Time, subliminal advertising for her show. And the Jason from the Couch radio podcast, more subliminal messaging, Monday, 6 p.m. Eastern Time. About the value of his contract. Was it necessarily always going to be what he delivered from the pitching mound? When the Blue Jays won the bidding for Ryu, and they had to go the extra year in order to bring him to Toronto, and I would say it's a decision that he doesn't regret at this point, despite the inconsistencies, on the field, and the injury problems. He certainly wasn't the pitcher that was a Cy Young finalist his last year with the Dodgers. It showed that the Blue Jays were no longer just in rebuilding mode, that they were going to be serious players for free agents going forward. It was building a foundation. Some of the most expensive investments any developer has to make is literally laying the foundations in terrain that perhaps was not always fertile or stable to build a foundation on. That's what HyunJin Ryu's contract was. And value is a funny thing. Everyone has different values in their life. For some people, money is the driving influence. For some people, it's service to others. Some strike that balance. But HyunJin Ryu's value in the subsequent luring of George Springer to Toronto, again, it wasn't the only factor, but it made a statement. And, and players and their agents and the union, they talk about this stuff behind closed doors. They're not going to tell you they're talking about it, but they talk about the stuff behind 8 old doors. Oh, finally, Toronto is willing to spend. Rogers is willing, now to spend. They put their investment in the farm system. They're letting Mark Shapiro do things from a national marketing standpoint. And when I say national marketing, we're talking about in Canada. The Toronto Blue Jays play in Canada, so American listeners, don't be offended. Okay, they play in Canada. I hate to break it to you. They're not the Biloxi Blue Jays or the Binghamton Blue Jays. They're not even the Buffalo Blue Jays, even though they were for parts of 2 seasons. They're the Toronto Blue Jays. Shapiro's done a great job nurturing and building the whole Canada's team approach to the Toronto Blue Jays. So they know, and I'm sorry, Rachel, how are you? Hey, Mr. Fek, I love your show. This is Lawson's, Rachel's son. Lawson, thank you. Your mom had said that you really enjoy my show. I'm glad. Usually I would say that my show would require like some kind of parental advisory rating, but I think your mom Rachel sees through that, and you understand that it's all fun, but it's all serious talking about Blue Jays baseball. Thank you so much for checking in. It's great. Anytime you want to check in, you're welcome. Maybe during the playoffs or maybe during the off season, we can bring you on as a guest if you're not too nervous. But we have time to talk about that. If it wasn't for the injuries, the narrative on Ryu would be way different. Christian Rao, the Rao Report, the #1 overall seed in the Jays from the Couch inaugural Fantasy Baseball League, my partner in another podcast venture about college football. I'm not going to spend time plugging that here, but you're right, Christian. I think it would be a different narrative, but honestly, it doesn't bother me. That contract does not bother me. It set the tone, but the real reason it doesn't bother me is the positive impact and influence that Ryu has had on Alek Manoah. The 2 pitchers, share more than just a body type. Though Alek Manoah is a beast. I mean, HyunJin Ryu is a big guy. He's not Alek Manoah. But they connected on levels, and there's always that teammate connection. It's not like you don't love your other teammates or you don't even like them or you can't talk with them. But you'll always find one teammate or 2 teammates that just click. I'm trying to go through time here in my head with the Blue Jays. I would say Dave Steve and Ernie Witt clicked. As much as Dave Steve, tortured Ernie Witt, on the playing field, I think those 2 clicked. I know that the outfield tandem in the 80s of Barfield, Mosby, and Bell, they connected on a level that was different, from the fans. I mean, historically, a lot was made always of Ted Williams and Dom DiMaggio and Bobby Doerr of the Red Sox of the 40s and 50s. Bobby Mercer and Thurman Munson were very, very close. More recently, Adam Wainwright and Yadier Molina with the Cardinals. They're just a special connection sometimes. That has produced results on the field. Now, again, it's Manoah getting the job done and being responsible for those results. But without that mentorship, without that connection to a veteran pitcher that's been there before, that does things his own way. Say what you will about HyunJin Ryu. He knows going into an inning exactly what he wants to throw, in what count, and in what situation. And while he and Danny Jansen certainly clicked, ultimately Jansen would have to give in to Ryu because Ryu was not going to pitch until Jansen and he agreed on the pitch that Ryu wanted to throw in that situation. And I think Manoah has asserted that in his 2-year career here so far in the major leagues. He's going to throw what he wants to throw. And he's going to throw inside no matter how much whining happens from the opponents. So HyunJin Ryu's value of that $20 million, you're not going to see it in the box score. You're not going to see it, at the end of the season stats. And certainly with a pitcher like HyunJin Ryu, you're never going to hear analytic darlings, talk about HyunJin Ryu. But he knows how to pitch. And that is translated into, honestly, what may be the most exciting first 2 years by a pitcher since Doc Gooden. And I was there, I was a season ticket holder for the Mets from 84 to 87. 84 and 85 were just magical. And honestly, I thought it was going to be Nate Pearson that did it. As much as I, have followed Alek Manoah and saw him pitch in college in person, because Morgantown, West Virginia is about an hour south of here, where I live in Pittsburgh. But so that value, HyunJin Ryu has found a way to earn that money. And you can be cynical and scoff and say, oh, well, yeah, that's just an excuse, or, well, that doesn't really help us in the playoffs now. Yeah, it does. Without Alek Manoah, you don't get to the playoffs this year, and you don't flirt with them last year. He's earned his contract. So, and that's sort of what we do here on the On Fek Circle. The On Fek Circle, okay, it's a play on deck circle, but if you've ever played baseball, whether it be just for fun or whatever, and you're waiting for your turn at bat, you have viewpoints, advantages that nobody else in the ballpark really does. And that's sort of what we try to do here, on the On Fek Circle. We want you to think about options and concepts and strategies in a way that's your own, how you see it. But unfortunately, we get fed, so much crap from the analytics crowd, people that cover the team. They're obviously having to walk that tightrope between having honest assessments, but also having to, promote loony dog night and things like that. So I try to cut through all of that, and I try to put a governor on my fandom for the Blue Jays. And I will be honest, since the Blue Jays came here earlier in September, that love has just deepened, and I have fallen in love with the Blue Jays all over again. But doesn't mean that we shouldn't have honest conversations, and that's what we try to do here. Time for the Shadow GM report, and I have to give credit to Ron Suter, who is, you might recognize that name, Karen Suter. It's Karen Suter's husband. I got to meet him for the first time when he and Karen and hundreds of Blue Jay fans, came here to my adopted hometown of Pittsburgh and took over the city, really, in many, many ways. Certainly took over PNC Park. But Ron Suter and I had some great conversations over dinner when he was here. And then he FaceTimed me on Sunday. And we had originally talked about what we thought the rotation should be. And I had said, well, even though Manoah is the best pitcher, you just can't pitch him in an opening game. He's the Tasmanian devil. He'll lose his mind. So Gausman, I think, has earned that. Manoah 2, and I'd said Barrios 3. I wanted to see Ross Stripling pitch in that Andrew Miller flex bullpen role that he's used to pitching out of the bullpen. And I thought that would be great. Ron had said, no, I would make Ross Stripling my number 2 starter. And we joked and back and forth. But then on the FaceTime call, Ron said, I have an idea. I want to kind of run by you, see what you think. I think it should be Gausman, Manoah, Barrios for the wild card round. But you sit down and talk to Ross Stripling and say, we're not ignoring you in this round. We're saving you. You're our silver bullet when we win this wild card round. you're going to be the opening pitcher. If it goes the full 3 games, if it only goes 2, even better, he's your number 2 starter. And the more I thought of it, I really like it. There's a lot of chatter out there where people are talking about, well, he's going to be a free agent and he's had a great year, and we don't want to offend him. God bless you, Canadians. You really find a way to be kind and to be considerate, even in situations where that doesn't apply. And I have to apologize for those of you that watched the podcast last night. I kind of lost my mind. And I mean, Shaun Doyle and Karen expect that from me, but we were talking about, well, we can wait on, naming Schneider the permanent manager, and then all through the season, well, we can wait to the trade deadline. We can wait. All I hear is, well, we can wait. Next year, and I'm a grumpy old bastard. I am. Okay, I don't want to wait anymore. I've been waiting since 1979. Okay, 85, great year. They coughed up a lead to the Royals, and the Royals went to the World Series. 87, up by 4.5 with a week to go, coughed up a lead. Didn't win the division, didn't make the playoffs. 92 and 93, that was great. But it seems like forever. 2015 was magical. 2016, another good year. Tired of waiting. They should have made the playoffs had they been more aggressive last year. So we had to wait till this year. Then they had all the big signings, and even though there were obvious holes and they were showing in the team performance on the field early in the year, well, we're going to wait to the deadline. I don't want to wait anymore. Okay, no more waiting. But before I get off on that tirade, I refer back to that because Ross Stripling's a professional. He knows he can go on the free agent market and he's going to get paid. My gut instinct tells me he wants to be a Blue Jay. And he will find a way to make that happen as long as the Blue Jays are reasonable about it. How they use him in the playoffs, I don't think Ross Stripling would be offended. There are other starters. If you put Barrios, didn't have him on the playoff roster for the wild card round, I can see him being upset. But Ross Stripling should be held unless you have to go into an extra inning game and all hands on deck in game 3. He should be held back so he can be the game 1 pitcher and have at least one more start in the next round should they advance. So my thanks to Ron Suter for that FaceTime call, and certainly for your friendship. It was great. And I love when feedback comes in. We had Lawson. We've had Dulcimeris on a regular basis. I've had several friends of mine, Sarah and Butchie and Sue and Dr. Bob Herbert. All these people have checked in throughout the years, and I really do appreciate that. It means so much. But this, I think, from a shadow GM perspective, that is smart. And Ron also suggested it, and I agreed. You sit down with Ross Stripling and you say, you're as big a reason as to why we got here than anyone. Sort of like that scene toward the end of Major League when Lou Brown has to go to the Wild Thing, Ricky Vaughn, and say, hey, look, you're part of the reason that, you got us here, but I'm going to go with the veteran pitcher instead. I think it is smart to lay the groundwork and say, Ross, this is what we're thinking. If you pitch in relief, it's going to be very limited. We want you fresh. We want you ready and gunning game 1 of the ALDS. So my thanks to Ron Suter on that. I think that is the strategy the Blue Jays need to pursue as they set up their rotation going into the playoffs. Well, time just seems to fly when I ramble and ramble. Thank you for tuning into the On Fek Circle. Don't forget, on Thursday night, Sunny Side of the Dome, Karen Suter will be live. And every Monday, a live recording of the Jays from the Couch radio podcast, 6 p.m. Eastern time. For all of those shows, you can always download it and subscribe. Give us a like, some nice comments, some ratings. Anywhere you get your podcast, Apple, Google, Stitcher, Spotify. If they have good podcasts, they're going to have Jays from the Couch shows on there. I am your shadow GM, and I take that job seriously. The Fekless Wonder, Steve Fek. Tune in again next week. I'll have more Fekless Wonders for you to ponder. Enjoy this week of baseball.